Welcome to this episode of the Blueprint of Living Your Extraordinary Life. I am your host, Theo Tilton, and on with me today, I have this amazing woman, Beverly Thatcher. She is also known as the forgiveness guru. She has been on a spiritual path for over 2 decades, working with the Course in Miracles on a daily basis. Today, she's going to share with us what she has discovered as the missing link for herself over all of these years, being internally oriented as opposed to being externally oriented. She believes that this is the blind spot that is the thing that happens with most spiritual seekers. And today she's going to share with us her epiphanies. And I want us to give a warm welcome to Beverly Thatcher. Hello, Beverly. How are you doing today?
Hello, Theo. Wow, thank you for that spectacular intro.
You're very welcome. That's awesome. So again, thanks. I just want to acknowledge you for being here. I know it takes something. We set aside time in our schedule, and sometimes there's uncomfortableness, and it's like that growing edge. As a coach, I always share with people, clients, and all kinds of different experiences that I have had as a coach, that the moment you start to feel that like level of uncomfortableness or like, ooh, like there's like a thing, it's like that is your growing edge. Like, so that's like, it's just the zone of the unknown. And when we come from a centered place of being in our own zone, like the thing that lights us up, the thing or the purpose, the reason why we're here, a lot of that starts to disappear. So the moment we really start to get in the flow of what it is that we're doing, and all of that discomfort seems to like just completely dissipate and say goodbye to all that stuff, right? And I know that your zone, you've been in the coaching space, and you're known as the forgiveness guru, right? And creating miracles. And you talk about being involved with the Course in Miracles for like over 2 decades. And I myself, I'm staring at a copy of the Course in Miracles right now on my bookshelf. And I have done also the Course in Miracles, and I'll be quite honest, I did not complete the book. But I want to hear from you, like, what has the impact of A Course in Miracles been in your life? And how is it that you've been practicing it every single day for the last 20 years?
Okay. So I will share with you that the book showed up in my life literally when I was 16. I'm now 57. So it appeared in my house. I never knew where the book came from. It just sort of had a presence with it. And then throughout my journey, it kept surfacing, right? Like the night I walked out of Wall Street, and I'm sitting in the back of a restaurant upstate, I made a distinct decision that I'm leaving that world. And I'm trusting guidance. This waitress was like, "Hey, do you mind if I come and sit down with you? I've heard you talking sometimes, and I really want to get to know you." So I'm sitting there with this stranger, and again, out of her mouth comes, "Oh, you need to read this book. My sister's reading A Course in Miracles." And that visceral feeling inside of me, like, "Oh, that book," because it was chasing me all these years. And there was a part of me that was just like, oh my God, the answers, because I was so far away from peace. And all I wanted was peace. And to feel loved in the world, and to feel close to other people, because that's all I craved. And it was always so elusive. And I was really lost. I just didn't know, like, what am I doing wrong? Please, somebody give me this manual, this book, or something that will give me the answers. So that's where my Course in Miracles journey started to begin. Like I tried again reading the book back when she said that, like, surely it's in this book. And I went back to the apartment in the city, and I tried reading the book, and it was like the same paragraph I'm reading over and over and over again. And I was like, this damn book is too hard. There's no way this is coming from Jesus or from the divine, which is the source of it.
Right.
And I slammed the book against the wall, the cement wall, my apartment. And I was so utterly determined to find the answers that I began to storm out of the apartment. And within 5 minutes, I put my hand on a book across the street that said The Perfect Power Within. And that book spoke to me. Like it was red highlighted all underneath and all the words throughout. I felt like somebody was doing just for me. So I began that book. I did that book probably for about 3 years.
Wow.
On my journey. And in hindsight, that was a baby Course in Miracles book.
Wow.
Like, there was one line in that book that just sang to my soul. She said, we must be willing to get rid of all of our hates, even the seemingly little ones, like doing the dishes or taking the trash out or speaking to a certain person.
Walking the dog or
yeah, whatever it might be. And it was the first time, like, when I heard that, I was like, wow, that would be heaven on earth.
right. Yeah.
right like because this was my pain in all of these experiences. So that was really perhaps like one of the big turning points, is fully getting that idea.
Mm. Yeah, what I'm hearing too, like it's like we have a tendency as human beings to everything means something. Like I think that's like even in, like you said, Course in Miracles, I think it's like day 1 or something, like in the Course in Miracles, where it's like I'm making this mean something, like and I know it's not day 1, but it's close to the front.
It's pretty close. Yeah, look at this cup.
Look at this cup. What does it mean? I make this cup mean what the cup means. And it's I do something like that in my book. I have this whole presencing practice where it's like we discover that we are the ones making the meaning of everything. And what I'm hearing you say is like all these little things, like dropping all these things that kind of like annoy us, that we hate, that like the subtle annoyances, the uncomfortability of things, like the thoughts, it's like the meaning, like that's there, and particularly significance, right? So it's like, why is it so difficult? Like, why do I hate walking the dog? Why do I hate doing the dishes? It's like there's something behind it that it's unconscious. It's like this subjective thought process that's there. And it's like being willing to stand in, I'm gonna let that go. You're just gonna let it go. Like, and some people, like, they really don't want to let it go. Like, they just don't, like, no, you're not gonna force me to let it go. Like, okay. They're gonna continue getting what you're getting.
Right. Yeah. And that really, it's been interesting. Like, over the years, there's a bazillion different stories of all the different incidences that finally led me up to landing on the Course in Miracles and being like, okay, uncle, this book must be the truth. And I began going to a study group up in Albany and starting to get a bigger handle on it. And I would say became like a mentor. He was like my forgiveness mentor, right? in things to let go of and to work on letting go of. And I was living with an alcoholic at that time. And we had a restaurant together that was in my name, right? And I had a bazillion reasons to be terrified or to want to crucify him. and it was really, and I just knew that I had become so reactive in my relationships with other people that I absolutely knew that I was the common denominator.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm connected to my feelings. Some people are not so connected to their feelings that it's easy for them to be in chaos, and they're not just like a reaction machine. But my body, my body is not going to tell a lie. Like, if it's bothered, I feel it. It's like, so it's been this journey of like,
oh, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling something.
Like, when you're feeling like it's real, like I've learned since then. So every upset, like that whole relationship had nothing to do really with him. He was like my teacher of all this pain that I had inside of me. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably represented every previous pain.
Right. I mean, there is a supplemental book of A Course in Miracles. I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but it's called The Song of Prayer. And
I'm not
that was
familiar.
always like my crisis go-to when I really wanted to rip somebody's head off or his head off back then. And there's a line in it that says, like, it's not him, it's your past that you're seeing in him. Like, lay down your arms and receive the lily that he's trying to give you.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, he's my savior bringing me home. Like, he is pointing out everything inside of me that is unloving or is guilt and shame and all that other stuff that's flopping around in there.
Wow.
So I did that whole, I had become so isolated basically from the world. Like, I was so reactive. I couldn't really be with anybody. So I did that whole relationship wholeheartedly. Like, every time he said something that hurt me or triggered me, I would be like, and I would turn around, I would see me doing it, and I would drag myself up to my local ashram to go meditate, or I would do the Course in Miracles. I would do it all day.
Wow.
Until that agony would leave me, right? And I would assert, like, I had a blind spot back then, like, that I now know a way through it that I didn't know back then, right?
Okay.
So the pain that comes up now, there's like a quicker way that I know to move through it.
So
Right?
it's like when you're driving, right? And it's like all of a sudden the highway splits and you're like, oh, there's the express lane and I can stay in the local, or I can
Yeah,
fly
right.
on this express lane. So it's like you've discovered this thing for yourself. And that express lane can be completely different for each person.
Right.
But you discovered yours, which is that's great. So what
Right.
is it? I mean, do you care
I
to
know
share?
you want to know that express lane, don't you? I got you. Well, it was like getting very clear, right? For one thing, that I know that there's a purification process. The Course is very clear. Like, before we begin to see miracles on a regular basis, you have to go through this purification process,
Hmm.
right? And in that process, what I learned this past year is that I was being externally oriented,
So
right?
outside of yourself.
Right. Like I would say, like, I began to creep into understanding this like 2 or 3 years ago, that I wasn't connected to my own feelings. Right. So when you grow up in an environment, like, we tend to be like connected to the people around us, right? Our parents or whatever. Like, for me, it was a very chaotic environment, right? So you learn at a very young age how to be like a people pleaser, or what do I need? Let me pay attention over there to them, right? So that I can stay alive, that I can
Oh,
survive through this, right?
yeah.
Like, and that is what, if you've ever heard of codependency,
Yeah.
that's what codependency is, largely, right? It's caring more about what other people think and feel than what I'm caring about what I think and feel.
Or maybe even being so neutral. Something, it's great. I love these conversations because, like, there's an opportunity for me to really think about something that occurs inside of me, right? So I'm like, like, hearing you, I'm like, I have this kind of very neutral way in the world. And I think back to my past and I'm like, well, I wasn't like that in the past. I was very kind of like polarizing, and I had like this push my
Mhm.
opinion or my agenda. And now it's like, no, like, listen. And I discover even now, like, there's times when, like, I've been hijacked and I'm secretly pushing my agenda again. Like, oh, really? Like, so it's kind of like something that's there. And then I become aware of sometimes the indecision, like that becomes present in any scenario, whether it be like, hey, what do you want to do tonight? Like, very kind of like open-ended question, like, or what do you want to eat for dinner? Like, it's these kind of like very open, whatever you want, because I'll eat anything. Like, or, and so like the way you actually are kind of like, for me, like drops out and then allows this space of like, well, whatever happens, happens, and I'm okay with it. And maybe, and what I'm hearing you say, it's like almost like, well, am I allowing myself to just be codependent and not have my own inner expression of what it is that wants to actually be there and come out, and then once it gets externalized from the internal, then there can be a negotiation of like, oh, okay, that, all right, well, what do you want to do? Like, and have default speaker. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh,
got it.
Sound check. All right. So, and then it's like, then once you bring that inner into the outer, and both parties or multiple parties are involved in that, it's like, oh, now we can have a conversation about what it is that we collaboratively want to do, as opposed to always being the pacifist, like just sitting there and like, yeah, everything's fine, everything's, yeah, let's just, okay, let's do that, I'll do that, I'm fine with that, that's great. Like,
right.
and that's kind of like what I was kind of like internalizing what you were saying, and I was like, oh, where do I do that for myself?
Right. Well,
Maybe
I mean,
it's something to be aware of for me.
well, it's interesting. I mean, I'll share with you like what I have discovered that I have utter faith in over these last years, because it's allowing the conflict to come up.
Oh,
It's like
allowing there to be a disturbance.
like to starting to connect to my feelings, right? And starting to say what comes from me internally, not from feeling over there with that other person. Like, what do they want to hear me say? What do they need me to say? Right? It's starting to trust, call whatever you want, the Holy Spirit or my inner guide or within me. What am I being led to say? And trusting that, even though it might bring you straight down a massive explosive blow up.
Right.
Right. And it takes courage to do. Like,
Yeah.
is there something there?
No, it's just, I'm like, it has me thinking again. It's like,
Right.
I have definitely had conversations in my circle, right, where there is this presence of what is it that like an agreeableness. Like, you're always so agreeable. I don't know if it's because you're always like just so agreeable and that's how you are, and that's how you operate, or if you're just trying to be a people pleaser. And a part of me knows, like, definitely in my past, I have been a people pleaser. Like, I was,
Like we all are.
yeah, I was
much,
completely,
right?
yeah, I was completely operated by the misinterpretation of things, right? So I'm going to be rejected in this moment. I'm not lovable, and the world out there is really scary, and I need to surround myself, and I'll do everything that I need to do to make sure I don't lose love and affinity and like all these things. So acceptance, the fear of rejection, like all these things kind of control that narrative. And I never quite thought about it the way you're bringing it, which is great. I love it.
Yeah, I could share with you, like, I'm standing from where I am, right? That I'm pretty positive that the thinking mind is the whole, like the entire thinking mind is the realm of the ego, our false self. It's a survival mechanism, right? So I would assert, like most of us, we did that to protect ourselves because we could not be with the pain, the feelings that are inside of us that need to be given space to have voice. They need to come up. That rejection, the lack of love, the feeling that we're inadequate or disappointing other people, like, and that has been my journey over the last year, is learning how to escape the thinking mind and feel into, like, regularly, within myself. Like what is showing up in my being? What's there for me?
Yeah, that's wild. You said a few things about the design of who we are, and like, have you ever heard of something called, and this is not really something that I cover on this podcast, but and I'll preface this by, I don't know a lot about it. I know a person who knows a lot about this. It's called human design. Have you ever heard of human design?
I knew you were going to say that. I was almost going to say the words before you had it come out of your mouth, but I couldn't think of what's that called again. It's that thing that Charles Davies does. So yes, I have heard of it, and I have taken the test, and I don't exactly remember that, but
Charles Davies does it? Wow.
Or he did it. Like they did the test, and I think it reveals some stuff. Yeah.
Charles Davies is a mutual friend. So for those of you who are listening, it's somebody that we shared a friendship here.
Hi, Charles.
Hey, Charles. Charles, how you doing? And that would be Charles Davies from Philadelphia, I believe.
Who is now in North Carolina.
Who is now in North Carolina. Amazing. Probably chewing people up and spitting them out in the real estate scene. But anyway, yeah, human design is all based on a mixture of multiple modalities of spirituality, which is, you have the Kabbalah, you have astrology, chakras, the I Ching, which is an ancient Asian.
I've done that. I think I've done everything.
Yeah. And so you have all these like gates, and like when you were born, there's all these, the planets were in a certain position, all these neutrinos came in and programmed your body. And so human design says there are certain profile types, or you're a generator, you're a manifesting generator, you are a manifester, you're a projector, you are a reflector, like, and so your body set up a certain way. And it's not, a lot of people think, they get a little bent on this topic, because especially in spirituality field, right, we have a tendency to think of a law of attraction and like, oh, we can manifest anything we want. And there's truth to all of it, right? What human design says is that, yes, spiritually, that is true. Like, you are a divine being, like you're created, like but there is a false self, right? So, and the body that you're in, the vehicle, the flesh suit that you're in came with a manual. That manual is human design. So it's kind of like giving you like I drive a Volvo, you drive a Porsche, like what and there's different ways. Like I have a manual I have a power steering, you don't, or like, so like there's different ways in which the tool, which is the vehicle, operates, and every single person potentially has a unique design. And so that's what that whole thing is. And so as you were saying this, I was like, oh, the false self. Yeah, like that.
That is the false self.
That is the false self, because now there's these things called open centers, like, which is, you have your mind, you have your ajna, which is like your third eye, you have your throat, you have your identity center, your heart, your solar plexus, your spleen. Like there's all these centers, energy centers, and some of them are defined and some of them are open. And in the open ones, that's where all the programming can occur. That's where all the false self comes in, because the world around us begins to program us from the moment we're like this big, and we have
this big,
or this big, or this big, you know,
yeah,
and we have the indoctrination of religion, parenting, schools, books, movies, cartoons, like all these things like start to program all these open centers in the design of the body. And then there are defined centers, which these are our innate talents, gifts, like things that come from within us that are like divinely given. And it's like, I find in learning more about human design, it's like, all right, how do I tap in? Like, how do I tap into all that divine stuff, knowing that it's there? Because it's automatic. Like, we don't even realize that it's there. So yeah, so it kind of had me, I know that was a little bit of a diversion, but it kind of had me think about what we were saying about the false self, like that the ego comes into place, and it's like this illusionary thing, and we're walking around, and the thing that's being presented out in the world is the false self.
The whole world. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole world is that way.
The world, like everything that we see is not real. Like it's a projection of our humanness.
Yeah.
Sorry, that might have been a little weird for right now, but
No, it's
yeah,
and,
yeah.
you know, and very necessary for us to maybe have this conversation. Like it's appropriate, right? So everything that's happening, the pandemic, like I can't believe it's been 3 years. Like
Mhm.
just a little side note for the audience that's listening, how I know Beverly. Beverly and I were in a 2-year-long program, transformational program around the idea of communication and like how communication can completely transform your world. Like you say, chair falls out of your mouth, and like there's a chair there in the room. Like, so it's really about the empowerment of language and all these different types of things. So we know each other from that, and we have a background together in that, I'll call it technology. But one of the things I've noticed since the pandemic started back in 2020, now my last weekend in that program was November 2019. And we were in like San Francisco. And it was right before Thanksgiving. And I came home and I was like deathly sick for 2 weeks. And that was exactly the time when the first cases started coming in. I don't know if you were in that weekend, but that was when they had that world's largest Salesforce conference in San Francisco, and 180,000 people from Asia, and like we're all in San Francisco in the same hotel that we were in. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I caught COVID in the beginning. But the conversation that was happening in the world, and still kind of like is happening, it's kind of like this survival struggle. Like it's kind of like this manipulated conversation that's like the world is going to hell in a handbasket, and there's nothing you can do about it. And like to be quite honest, there's been many times where I catch myself falling, I'll use the word victim, like falling victim to the external. And it's like, holy crap, like it's so pervasive. It's everywhere. And I'm also noticing my language, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm saying it's everywhere. So of course it is everywhere. So we have the power within us. And I know the Course in Miracles talks about this. We have the power within us to completely change that false illusion. Like we can drop, the illusion can drop, and like the reality of what you are can be revealed in the world itself by simply creating it through a brand new meaning, brand new thought, brand new conversation, brand new language, like inventing something, because that's what we do by default anyway. That isn't that what you think? Like that's who we are. We are co-creators of our own life. And we invent everything that we see.
So I would say that's true. And the Course in Miracles would assert that you would go from one dream to a happier dream, but you're still not going to have the experience of being that experience of like one of the things I read in like The Disappearance of the Universe, right? When they talk about like in being in the divine mind, like fully getting above this battlefield finally, right? Where we're in the divine mind, Buddha mind, Christ mind, whatever you want to call it, right? He says, well, it sounds kind of boring, like nothing would change, you have no problems. And he describes to him like, well, take like your very best orgasm and multiply it by like 300,000. Like would you find that boring?
I would survive. I don't know if I would survive.
Like I don't know what it says, but it says like, would you find that boring? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like this choice every day of realizing like I can run around and dance around in trying to make things happen, but I'm realizing the most important work for myself is when I do have a problem out there, it's to not from my thinking mind try to like reinvent it or decide how I want it to look, but to really drop the allness of everything and feel into that truth within me, the kingdom of heaven within me, the perfection, the love, the safety, the joy. And constantly like realizing when I'm hooked. When we're hooked in something out there, it's temptation, right? And it's to realize like I have this going on, and to go within, and to keep going within and going within. And it's a whole different way of being in the world, right? It's to like let go. And there are some times when I recognize I have a hard time like letting go of something, or the realness of something, right? And it's like it's really like clashing between two worlds, right? Like I'm currently going through my big booga booga healing right now with my family.
Would
Right?
you like to share? I was going to say, could you walk us through some kind of specific instance or experience,
Yeah.
and how you're applying the principles that you've been talking about?
So I have been doing a codependency program this past year, and it's been interesting because it doesn't talk about like forgiveness and things like that. So I've been kind of like taking what works for me and what doesn't, and leaving the rest behind. But part of that program was teaching me how to allow my emotions and my feelings and my pain to emerge, and to be with that, to let it come up, right? So and that's the newness. When it's hard to really get, like the course is saying, it's teaching us how to connect to that inner teacher. So it's going to bring me through other means of whatever it takes for me to learn how to bring a healing to what's happening to me, right? At the end of the day, the heart of the Course in Miracles is getting free of the shame and the guilt. It's really because that is what's binding us to this human condition, the suffering, the surviving. Right. So when I went through this thing with my sister, right, it's upheaving every doubt, all that pain that's deep inside of me, right? Like the things that were said that I couldn't be with in the beginning, right? So I have to learn how to like let that pain come up inside me, to sink into my body, to feel that shame and the guilt. Where, like, what is there? To feel the mourning of feeling rejected by my family, which is out in the world, right? And it was like going through this process repeatedly of basically allowing divine love, my higher self, Jesus, whatever works for you, for me, right, is to constantly allow myself to be with it, and to let that pain come up, and then to care for it, and acknowledge the legitimacy of these feelings, right? Because we're told that our feelings are crazy. We're not allowed to feel. We're not allowed to be upset, right? Like it's not enlightened to be upset. And if I had one big message that I want to shout out to the spiritual community is, we have to go through that. We have to allow these feelings to come up and to sink into it, to get out of the thinking mind, and to connect to our feelings and to allow the darkness to be purified. And to constantly like go back and to connect to the feeling of innocence inside of me, and to the feeling of my being, the presence inside of me, the truth that's in me. And I mean, look, intellectually, I get, like, my sister and I were not separate, right? Like,
yeah, you and I are
like,
not.
and intellectually, I get to forgive it all.
Yeah.
But I am not going to heal this on an intellectual level. There is no healing that could ever happen from the rational mind.
It has to come from a deeper place.
Right. Like that was my blind spot over all these years, right? Like when we did that communication program, to me, that was like a playground for me to see what was inside of me.
Yeah.
Right. And I pretty much, what I kept doing to myself was I would make myself wrong and bad for these reactions. And I would be like, oh, when the hell am I going to get rid of these? Like, I've been working so hard, right? Like, and they're still there, right? And what was missing from my process in doing that was to have really given myself the space to feel what was in that reaction.
Yeah.
Because that reaction is because the little girl, the little ego Bev couldn't be with what they were saying. It was too painful.
Yeah.
And it was this innate belief that I'm bad, that I'm difficult, that I have no compassion or empathy, or I can't be kind enough to be with some, like, couldn't be a good enough listener. Like, we can't.
I've had that, by the way. I've had that.
You've had what? You've had what?
I have this amazing, I'll remain nameless, right? But I have this amazing friend that, like, yeah, it's like the friendship is just ridiculous. It's great. And at the simultaneously, it's one of the most challenging things, like, and because this person represents a mirror, a constant mirror, like a reflection, and it's a talking. So imagine, I want you to imagine, this is for everybody that's listening, like, I want you to imagine that you're in relationship with somebody who's a friend, and it's the mirror of your world, and it's a talking mirror, like it talks back at you and it tells you the truth, like, of like what's going on internal, like, so it's a mirror that sees through you, that can see, oh, where's that coming from right now? Because that's like, you're talking from a place of like, you're ready to be rejected, and that's not what's really going on. Like, you're not even listening to me. Like, and so when you said listener, I was like, oh yeah, I've had that one before. Like, where we get distracted in the thought of what it is we're about to respond to, and then like sentences and phrases and paragraphs will go by in language that we're like not even present to. And we, like, you didn't say that. Yes, I did. I just said that. No, you didn't. Like, I didn't hear you say that. Like, yes, I did. And it's like, so when you said that, I've resonated with that. It's something that I'm continuously working on, trying to be more present to it. Have you found a secret with that? Have you, when this comes up for you, like, have you, like, something about being present in that moment to really get someone and it be in authentic communication with somebody?
Yeah, the secret is to stop and connect to your own feelings, is to keep nurturing the presence within ourselves, and to keep nurturing it, because we can't show up. If it is driving us crazy that somebody over there isn't listening to us, or somebody over there is saying these really horrible things, right? Like, what the things that my sister said, like, it took the breath out of me, right? And it was the things that I heard as a kid. It was the things as a kid that I couldn't be with, right? Like, as if like I was a monster because I had all these intense emotions or feelings that no one could be with in the family. Everybody's just ping-ponging with each other, right? So I had to keep nurturing that pain that was coming up. Like, I had to, like, allow it to feel, like, what's showing up, even like feeling what's showing up, like when your friend's not listening to you. It's like to go and daily show up with what's there for me. What does that feel like? Yeah.
Or what about when you're, excuse me, like, I just want to ask, what about if you're the one? Like, so if you're the one that is discovered that, like, you're not listening, like, and you're the one that, like, is being told, you're not listening to me. Every time I speak to you, it makes me feel like you're not listening to me, or like, I'll tell you something, and then like 24 hours later, it's like as if we never had the conversation. Like, I know we had the conversation because you were sitting there saying, yeah, I gotcha. Like, and you even repeated what I said, but here it is 24 hours later, and it appears as though you really didn't hear me, or you really didn't listen to me. I've had that experience myself, where
where you couldn't be with what somebody else was saying, or the other way around.
No, like I'm the one being told I'm the one that's not listening.
Right. Okay. Got it. Well, I just lived through this with my sister. Okay. Right. Because literally we were both in a gridlock of I'm not feeling heard, and I'm trying to get clarity, like, hey, is that what you really feel about me? Like, I need some examples or whatever. And I kept getting like no response. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going berserk on my side. Right. Like what the hell? Right. But the truth was, I had to be with and allow the pain of those feelings of what she was saying to me. I had to heal that,
Right.
to get past the defensiveness.
Right.
Right. Like I couldn't even be present with her or even think about going back into a relationship because I was so taken out. My nervous system like was shot because it felt like pure rejection.
Wow.
For me. Right. Like,
yeah.
Right. Like I couldn't even be talking to her or hearing what was there with her until I could heal enough of that pain inside of me.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to believe that it's always like in us. Like
Yeah.
it's really, really, really hard to believe.
No, it cannot be.
I know. It's like,
it can't be so.
You know,
I don't believe a word you're saying.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I could give an example from this communication program we did, right?
Yeah.
So I had a fear, like I couldn't speak up to people that I perceived as authorities or over me, right? Now that is right there a call for healing.
Yeah.
Like that I am perceiving anyone as superior to me, above me, or any of that. Like it was such a blind spot, seeing that I even had that there, and that I was afraid of like showing up in the team 2 calls. Like I was really having a nervous breakdown going to those calls because every time that I would speak up in the past as the youngest of 7 people, it didn't go well because I would try to speak up. They didn't like what they heard. And then it would be like a smear campaign, like, oh, you're so difficult. Oh, why are you doing this to me? And I'd be like, what? Like nobody's hearing me. Right. So that tape was still running in me. Right.
Yeah.
And I had a whole like year on the program, in doing the program, where I had a hard time showing up with another team member. Like for a year, we had a recurring upset.
Wow.
A year. And I would say, listen, I don't know why I'm being late showing up to this call or being late doing this. I really don't know. I have alarms, I have this, I have that. And I swear to you, it is not that. Like I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
And they couldn't believe it or accept it or be with it.
Right.
Or trust it. And we kept having this pain every day, having the same upset. They wanted me to be different and I couldn't be. But if I knew then what I know now, I would have healed my pain that I was experiencing from them not believing me.
Right. Exactly.
Like I could have been able to be with their pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to relate, to like really relate.
Right. Show up as a presence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's fascinating stuff. Like one of the things that comes up for me is the ability to be with. I've done so many exercises on this for myself, which I think has allowed me to be where I'm at mentally and emotionally, being able to be in very difficult scenarios. But the difficulty has nothing to do with the actual communication, circumstances, events, environment. It has nothing to do with it. the difficulty is all here. It's like it's all in the mind. And it takes something. When I talk with a client and I talk about coachability, I spend a whole day section in my book about it. It's about coachability. It's really our ability to be with something that's really uncomfortable and being able to hear it over and over and over and over and over, like, and being able to be with it until it sinks in and you discover something newly, where you discover like, oh, like the pop, like the epiphany of, oh, it's me. I'm the one listening and interpreting and meaning making and doing all these things. And I have to stand in this to be an observer of it, so that I realize I'm just making all this shit up. And it takes sometimes a mentor, it takes sometimes a coach, it takes someone like you, a person who coaches somebody, who has a program and brings people through a process that needs to have also willing participants that go through and being trained. I know that you're highly trained, and you're sharing with everyone here that it's also a process that you're still involved in. Like, it still exists. Like, it's always this constant whip. I work at whip. When I say whip, I mean work in progress. There's always this constant whip that's happening. And it's like, there is this level of, I think, perfection that we strive for, especially in spirituality and personal development circles and transformation. Like, there's this like, whoa, like this like ideal image that like everybody tries to fall into, like thinking that there's some kind of perfect state. The truth is that that's not real. You know, like that, there is no like this perfect state. I believe, this is my experience, my perception. Like, even the likes of like Mel Robbins or Tony Robbins or Deepak Chopra or whoever it is, Marianne Williamson, we only see the sound bites. We only see the video clips. We only see the perfection. Like, we only see like, and then every once in a while they'll reveal, like, you'll hear these messages like, oh no, they go through shit too. like, and they just have to practice their own tools.
Right.
And that brings me to like kind of like another question. I know that we're getting close to our time, and I want to make sure that, like, it's so juicy. Like, everything that we're talking about is like really so rich and thick, filled with transformative juiciness, right? And it's in the squeeze, right? It's in that squeeze of life that we get to claim that juice. Do you have program, like, so I know that you have a couple websites and things going on. Do you have anything coming up that people could learn more about you? Do you have a class coming up or anything like that where people can jump in? Oh my God, I love Beverly. I'm gonna jump in and be with her and maybe go through her process and see what she's up to. Is there anything like that coming up for you?
I don't have anything like that scheduled.
Okay.
I will tell you, my website is beverlythatcher.com. And my other website is miraculouschaos.com. Right. One is really, my dream is to work with families. And I would say, like, I'm really just starting to step out and doing that, or individuals or couples in their chaos, because I know that the people who are right and ready for a spiritual shift are the people who literally are in a crisis. Like, those are our golden opportunities. And I want to go out and work with people to help them organize their space, or like physically deal with whatever they're dealing with, because that's where it creates the involvement. Yeah. Right? Because it's always the two of us always healing together. Yeah. Right? Like they're going to say things that are going to trigger me. I'm going to be triggered by them. And that's when we learn, like, to me, it's like really learning on the court live, when we're activated, how to heal with and be with and discover that pain that's inside of us. Right? Yeah. Like it's not going to happen intellectualizing on a therapy call with a therapist. Like, you might get some nice concepts and ideas. Right. Exactly. But the only way out of our hell, as far as I'm concerned, is actually learning to recognize, to discover, to connect to a peace inside of ourselves, because that is our guidance system, right? When we're not fully feeling peaceful, like there is something that's active in me, and learning how to give space to that inside of us and to heal it, like really being like the divine parent to our humanness.
Yeah, I mean, it's
right. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's amazing.
Like when a whole family is all fighting against each other, right? It's coming from your human perspectives and your triggers and your buttons, and you will never get out of it.
It's like it's your past experiences. It's like, they've been like this for 20 years. Like all this stuff comes in. It's like, and there's no listening. Like listening.
Well, everyone's throwing shame and guilt at each other.
Yes. Exactly. And waiting for the forgiveness, and they're waiting. I'm waiting. It's never going to happen. Like, I guess it's never going to happen. It's going to have to accept you for who you are. And all this stuff that happens. And it's like, let's collective take a deep breath. It's like, and let's just all temporarily let that go and allow the presence of who we really are to be present in the moment.
And to experience our innocence.
Yeah. Because all that's really what's happening, or the truth of really what's happening. And then everything else is like this illusory thing, the stories, the meanings, the projections, everything that gets created in the world around us from, I call it storytelling. It's like the storytelling.
Right.
And I'm a great storyteller. Like, I know, take it from me. I am a great storyteller, but yeah.
I'll tell you the most humbling thing in the Course in Miracles is it says, not one single thought of ours is true.
It's powerful, right?
Yeah. I like when we have the courage to do it, when we're in an upset with somebody else and we have the courage to be with like, wow, wait a minute. I really don't know anything about love. Because it's our ideas about love that's causing the pain for ourselves and the people around us.
Wow. It's amazing. We could go on for.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No. We can. No, listen, I want to. Like, it's like, what we'll also do, we'll have to say to be continued. So for all of those listeners out there who are like, oh my God, this is such an amazing conversation, we'll have to have Beverly back on and can continue where we are. She left her website information, and I will also put that into the podcast notes in the description. So if you want to reach out to her, I'm sure that there's a way for them to email you or something with you from your website. Okay, great. And I want to acknowledge you. I want to say thank you so much. It took a lot to be here. You opened up, you were so vulnerable, and you shared about so many different things in your life and the process. And what I'm getting is just how amazing and extraordinary that is. Not everybody. That is a rarity, to be just so open. And there was a few moments where I was like, it went into me, and I was like, oh, wow, like I could feel that. So thank you for impacting me in that way. And I'm sure that everyone that listening, maybe not everybody, but some of them have definitely felt the same thing that I just did. And I appreciate you. I see you. You're up to amazing things. And thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say before you leave?
I just want to throw out there the offer, if you feel up for it. If you wanted to do an exercise where you experience dropping into your body.
Ooh, I love it.
And you experience connecting to those inner feelings and the mechanisms of what's happening or what's not happening, just kind of allowing a little space. So I guess it could be a little vulnerable. If you're up for it. You don't have to post it, but if you're up for doing it, it really could be super, super powerful. Because this is the juice. Like, this is the only part that I want to give away to people, what I've learned or what makes a difference, right? It's doing this on a regular basis, something like this exercise.
Absolutely. And I would love to do that. So let's schedule, let's
Okay.
set up some time, and I would love to do that. Even if we record, I think it'd be fantastic to record.
Yeah. Actually, I got an idea.
Yeah.
When you're activated, when you're catching yourself like, oh my God, I want to die, or it'll rip their head off, one of those moments.
Okay.
Right? To just like spontaneously be, Bev, you got a couple of minutes? I really want to do this. I think that would be, because then it's like, it would be very real.
It's you
would
it's
experience
visceral.
it. You would experience the difference that happens.
I'll have to put you on speed dial.
And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful and honored that you gave me a chance to make this time and to create this today. Thank you.
You're so very welcome. Beverly Thatcher, everybody, the forgiveness guru, thank you so much for being here today. We all love you, and we'll talk again soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a great day, Annie.
Thanks, you too.